Hello, my name is Mary R.C. and this is Assignment 2, The New Deal. In order to be able to understand the reasons behind the New Deal, we must first visit the 1920s and be able to look at key components that led to the New Deal. The 1920s were a time full of economic prosperity, which was known as the Roaring Twenties, where many Americans enjoyed luxuries. During this time, Hoover was president, and to some people, the despairs that followed at the end were his fault. In 1929, the stock market crashed on Tuesday, and with its crash came many things. The biggest one that would lead to the New Deal later is the Great Depression of the 1930s. This economic downturn of the 1920s was due to the fact that there were high tariffs in place which reduced international trade. Not enough middle-class purchases, and the working class was not able to produce at the high levels that were needed. During his presidency, Hoover basically ignored the fact that Americans were desperately in need of government aid. And by the end of the 1920s, he believed that American self-reliance spirit would solve the issue. The New Deal came from the election of Franklin D. Roosevelt, or commonly known as FDR. This came at a time when the United States and its citizens were faced with terrible economic situations all across. The New Deal's common theme were its federal programs aimed at bringing the citizens the 3 R's: relief, recovery, and reform. FDR came in as president, promising the American people the New Deal. Even though FDR came from a wealthy family, he made sure that as soon as he got into office to cut back everywhere he could. For example, he cut back his meals in the White House from 7-course meals to the bare minimum. It is also important to take note of his wife, Eleanor Roosevelt, and her efforts towards minorities and women's rights. This is important because it connects in another way the 1920s to the 30s. During the time of the Great Depression, the first people to feel the terrible effects of it were the minorities. Many lynchings of African Americans occurred, and during this time, Eleanor helped push for their rights. Women had been working since the 1920s, writing letters to state directors asking for their support against the lynching of women through legislations as seen in this letter. The first 100 days of the New Deal brought in reliefs to the American people, mainly from legislations passed to help the poor in the form of job creations. Through FDR's alphabet agencies, known as this because of all their acronyms, many jobs were created for people all over the United States. Jobs were created through the Public Works Administration in 1933, of which the employment and payrolls show that from 1933, when it began, the workers were receiving low wages for their average earnings per hour, but the increase per hour for their average almost doubled in the 1940s. Another group of citizens in the United States that where the theme of relief, reform, and recovery can be seen is in the farmers. Under FDR, the AAA, or Agricultural Adjustment Act, helped farmers through their time of overproduction, as well as during this time, farmers and other groups were able to receive relief from the government. Farming people thought highly of FDR in the 1930s, as expressed by Mrs. Alice Fairweather of a squatter farming family in American Life Histories, where she describes that she felt that FDR really cared for the poor people. Thus, this enforces the relief aspect of the theme. Through his reforms, not only did he help the public, but as well found a way to make the connection on a personal level, whether it was through using the Bible or his most famous quote used in his inauguration: "Only thing we have to fear is fear itself," which he really used throughout his creation of agencies with the New Deal. This can show the impact that these jobs had on the quality of life that the people lived from the start to the end of the Public Works Administration. During the time of the New Deal and the Great Depression, the West was affected by the Dust Bowl, which was brought on by the drought along with the boom of the agrarian West. Many farmers during this time migrated to the Pacific West. A clear depiction of these migrant worker journeys was written by John Steinbeck in The Grapes of Wrath, where people from Oklahoma are driven out of their state and their homes into California. The many jobs created by the New Deal in the Pacific West drove these people out. These jobs ranged from dam creations, bridges, and many other infrastructure projects. In the 1940s, as seen by this map, California boasted as one of the most populous states with 6.9 million, and this can definitely be attributed to the Dust Bowl along with the job creations during this time, where aircraft and shipbuilding industry thrived in California. The theme for the New Deal was the 3 R's: relief, recovery, and reform, attacking all of the America's issues. But these were not the exact outcomes of the New Deal. Short-term relief was provided to the citizens of the United States along with recovery, but reform at the time was not happening from the New Deal. This theme of the 3 R's did leave the Americans with FDR for president for 4 terms and with many short-term relief efforts. Along with, it laid the foundation for many government agencies still used today.